Hello, everybody. Vince Venturella here again. Just wanted to take a moment to talk about something that's been on my mind recently. It's been kind of in the conversation. So I watched Warhammer Weekly last night. Great show. Whoopi and Nara and Kieran did an awesome job. Check it out if you didn't watch it yet. It's fantastic. But at any rate, they had a Q&A session at the end of that, and one of the big questions they tackled was, is Warhammer a sinking ship or something? There's a lot of speculation about the future of Warhammer and what happens with it and whatever. They asked what the reasons were, and I really didn't feel like they nailed any of the reasons. No offense against them, but why people are worried about it right now. I think what people are concerned about is a mix of rules changes they see they don't like, or that they see that they don't like, the business results of Games Workshop and what they had over the last year, and sort of general rumors and echoes coming out that they want to kill Warhammer and get rid of it or make it a skirmish game or something like that. And then so that rumor surfaces, and then this end times thing comes up, and people go, "Aha, this is how they're going to do it." So I want to take a minute to talk about that and just my own feelings on it. So here's my preface: I have no inside information in any way, shape, or form. I am the most outside person in the universe to Games Workshop. I only know like 3 people who live in the UK, so I certainly, and none of them work for Games Workshop. Um, so, but here's what I do know. I know a lot about project management and stuff like that. In my previous videos, I mentioned I'm design RPGs. Project management's my specialty, etc. And I've done that for professionally and for games for quite a while. And so let me just talk about what it takes to make a new product. When you're making a new product, you're a company. It takes everybody. Okay, it takes everything you've got if you want that thing to be successful. You don't just like put a small team on it. Maybe that's how it starts years out from the thing. But when it comes time to like actually get that product rolling, there is nobody not on that task. Okay. That is to say, everybody who is falling into the design or development workflow. And so people are worried like that Warhammer is going to die. That it's going to go away. And I think that's crazy. And here's why. Here's why I think that's crazy. Again, no inside information. This is just my own outside observances. What we're in the middle of right now is a massive series of releases for Warhammer Fantasy. Okay, you've got these big books, and they've got all this narrative written, and these scenarios, and new models, and yeah, they're not like whole new army ranges, but there's a lot of new pigs. I mean, that Nurgle stuff alone was, basically 4 different pretty significant kits. Not to mention the everything for the Noggish book, and everything else that we know is already coming because there's rumors of the Kane book and whatnot. So, I mean, there will be more. Okay, so pipelining that stuff, Games Workshop has to have 6 month, 1 year out pipeline to make that stuff. They've got to do the initial cast, send it off, get the mold built, mass produce them, ship them from China, wherever the heck they make them. I don't know actually, but there's a lot of work to that. Then they got to have their heavy metal team paint it. They got to put together the fluff. It's just a lot of writing and time. So they're working like at least 6, 9 months out, easily. Okay. So this stuff has been coming for a while, but it still takes a lot of work, even up to the point where it launches, because you still need a lot of people performing various tasks to make it happen. Now, I say all that to say this: if you want to see what a game looks like when it's about to shift completely and change totally, okay, go look back at what it looked like in between second and third edition of Dungeons and Dragons, third and fourth edition of Dungeons and Dragons, fourth edition, and the current D&D next, or fifth edition. Okay, that's what an edition change looks like, where it's going to completely overhaul the game. Okay, about 9 months to a year before that new edition is going to happen. Okay, everything else stops. There are no new products. Pipeline dries up. You stop making new stuff. You shut everything down. Okay. Uh, there are other times this has happened. Just it's easy to go to D&D because it's the most obvious example. Um, that's not what we're looking at right now. If I look back at, say, the end of the transition between third and fourth edition, so 2006 to 8, there was nothing except evergreen products like map books, funny arts books they can put together that they knew they could sell and make a little revenue to carry through until the big new product comes out. Okay, that's not what we're seeing here. What we're in the middle of is this big series of releases, and most of the rumors say that the end of these releases culminate in ninth edition. So if you're going to make ninth edition this completely different thing, if it's going to go to a skirmish game or something, right? This is not the way you step to that. The way you step to that is the Book of Nine Swords. So again, with the D&D reference, at the end of third edition, or near the end, about 3 years before the end, they made a book called the Book of Nine Swords, and it looked completely different than anything else in third edition. Why? Because it was built out of the fourth edition design process that a small team 3 years out from the release was working on. Okay, so what does that tell me? That tells me that the people who suspect that things like 50% lords or some kind of combined profile or stuff like that, that's the kind of stuff you'd see in ninth edition. That's those rules they're playtesting or building or writing, sneaking out and getting into the mix right now. But I don't see anything that says skirmish game out of anything that's been produced. Maybe I'm misreading it. I don't know. But I certainly don't see that. What I see, and so then let me what I see is a different sort of thing happening. Let me address another sort of concern. This idea that there's these like that the big change is going to be these crazy combined army books. That we're going to have like 4 army books or something, like order and chaos and I don't know, whatever the 4 books might be. I don't think that's going to happen either. Okay, they're not going to shrink it down that much, and I think any of our fear, like I think we can put the fears of that to rest. So there was this blog that surfaced with like Vampire Counts books got discontinued. So does that mean they're going to combine and everybody? Oh, that means they're going to have one undead book. Well, first of all, maybe, but second of all, that's a real jump. One, I didn't hear them say the Tomb King's book is also not being restocked. So maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know, but I didn't see that as part of the rumor. Which I would think, if they discontinued both, that would be a little more evidence to that. But if they're still going to make a Tomb King's book, and they just canceled the Vampire Counts book, that tells me that they would want to make a new Vampire Counts book. That seems a more logical conclusion. Two, even if they did combine the undead, that wouldn't be that weird, nor would even that necessarily imply we get a huge combination of army forces. We have this undead combination through Nagash, and this chaos combination through the Glotkin. But both of those still mention their individual books and talk about the armies individually. Maybe those end up being a combined book. Both of them obviously have been a combined book in the past. They've been one army. So seeing them go back to one army would not be crazy or unheard of. It would just be a shift. And there's no reason why they couldn't preserve the flavor of the individual forces in there. They could say this is your Khemri stuff or your Tomb King stuff and this is your Sylvania, your Vampire Count stuff, whatever. I mean, I think back to like the Skaven book from I don't know how many years ago, or the Empire book from 5th edition or something. That when you flip to the back, you had like your Artillery Train of Nuln book and your Middenheimers or whatever. Your Skaven had like your Clan Sky or your Clan Eshin, your Clan Molt, whatever. So you can easily have very distinct armies sitting in one army book. And honestly, I didn't hate that. I liked the idea to sort of tool around with it and take one book and actually let it be 4 or 5 different armies. And so something like that's great. But so if you're gonna, so even those 2 books, if they end up being the same, that doesn't mean that everything else suddenly shrinks together. What's Games Workshop ultimate endgame here? Well, the endgame seems pretty simple. Turn around their revenue picture, sell more stuff. People often lambast Games Workshop, but one thing they're not is stupid about the way that they make money. That is to say, other than this recent time, they've generally been pretty good at getting cash. They've been pretty good at making money. I mean, they have been around for making Warhammer Fantasy for more than 30 years, and a quick perusal, like go read like Designers and Dragons by Shannon Appelkline, and that'll show you how many game companies last that kind of time. It's not a lot. And by the way, in something like 98, 99, when Wizards of the Coast acquired TSR and made D&D, the largest game company in the world, or started making the third edition of D&D. The largest game company in the world at that time was Games Workshop. So not only have they been around, they've often been the largest and most successful game company in the world. Okay, that's up against a time when Magic the Gathering was selling like gangbusters and Pokemon existed. Okay, that's no small accomplishment. So they've been pretty good at making money if you look at the sum total of their existence. And right now the problem they face is they've spent years making and proliferating these armies, and they've tended to be very static and the same. That is to say, you introduce a couple new models, but basically it's the same range. So you've got, if I'm Games Workshop, I've got two choices. I can, one, crush everybody's army, ruin their investment, and make new armies in some way with like completely new figures. So you've got to rebuy your halberdiers and everything like that. You basically got to rebuy your whole army. We'll call that the Chronicles method. Okay, like the Magic the Gathering Chronicles escapade. Okay, so that's option one. Here's option two. I can change around the way the armies interact with one another through various ally systems or slight shuffles of the fluff, and address each army on an individual basis, so I start getting all this crossover and incentivize everyone to buy more stuff. So if you were playing Tomb Kings, you're incentivized to buy vampire counts. If you were playing Beastmen, you're incentivized to buy Warriors of Chaos and Demons of Chaos. Let's say the Kane book gives some kind of elf crossover in some way, whatever, I don't know. And do that with each thing, and maybe like a Bretonia book or something like that. I refluff the Bretonia, the new Bretonia on the other side of End Times, the new Empire on the other side of End Times. I don't have to combine them, and some of the old standards can still be there. I just change it enough that I can reinvigorate the model line, and I approach it on an individual basis, and I get a lot more crossover sales and stuff like that, because ultimately they've said outright that they don't care about like tournament balance and stuff like that. And honestly, I probably think they shouldn't too much. Tournament organizers TOs are always going to change rules. Every battle report I watch from major tournaments, they change rules, they change everything they want. They make wonky, crazy scenarios with you win by kicking around a pinata or whatever, I mean, like, or you can influence the battle at least. So to say that like they have to have the rules tooled and perfect out of the big red book is crazy. It's never going to happen. And that would waste a lot of time on their part that they can rather just let out into the lab of the world and let 1,000 TOs try it, and then eventually you find a norm and people settle on what they like. Great. It's fail fast design. So which one of those two worlds does Games Workshop want to live in? The one where, yeah, you make people rebuy their armies, but you make everybody really, really angry, and even they would know that. Or the world where I take all of my existing client base, theoretically retain 80 to 90% of them, and get a ton of them motivated to go buy new stuff because they get really excited about their armies that may have sat on the shelf for a while. Tough call. Tough call. Yeah, it's World 2. Okay. So what is the world going to look like on the other side of End Times? Different. We know that. Take Games Workshop at their word. They said the world will never be the same or whatever in the very first video they released with Noggish. Believe them, right? But they never said, like, we're going to kill Warhammer Fantasy. And I just don't see it happening. You don't throw away a revenue stream that can, with just a minor retooling, make a ton of money. And that seems to be exactly what they're aiming at. So is Warhammer Fantasy a sinking ship? Because of rules changes? No. TOs will always correct for that, and in your basement you can play whatever you want. So that's out. Is it going to be a skirmish game? No, but if they're smart, by the way, one of the changes would be to have a skirmish game as part of Warhammer. Bring back like Mordheim and make it be an entry level, so you lower the cost of entry into the game. Just a simple, you buy this many points, and let it scale from 300 points to 3,000 points. So, is it going to be only a skirmish game? No. We won't even talk about Red and Blue Ocean and how that would be a complete Red Ocean move, because there's people winning the skirmish game war right now. Is it going to be, what else is there? Other things are minor. Other things are nothing we haven't seen before. This game has changed 8 major editions and only gotten better every time, basically. So I see no threat of that in the future. So that's my thoughts on it. Leave yours in the comments below, and thank you very much.